Hello everyone, factoring into the 6th Summer 2020 update from GWV. So done 5 updates so far, as well as 1 seasonal model roundup for Summer 2020. We are over halfway now with the Summer updates. We'll be releasing the GWV.com Summer 2020 forecast on the 31st of May, the last day of meteorological spring. So, not a clear-cut, consistent signal with these updates so far. I suppose overall they have been a little bit more on the unsettled side than the settled side, but I don't have a clear sort of feeling about this summer yet. Although time is getting on, so I will soon have to start really knuckling down and thinking about where this summer could be going. But I've got a big update for you today, actually, because we're going to be looking at solar activity. So we're looking at summers that are occurring around solar minimum, whether that's just before or just after, but more about that very shortly. Just to say that coming up later on today, we've got GWV's Sunny Roundup, so that will be your usual sunny afternoon eclectic mix of this and that. And also going to have the ECMWF Metro France and DWD long range update. That will be later on this afternoon, probably around 3-4 o'clock, something like that. And between 5 and 6, there's going to be a live stream on the YouTube channel, so we're all going to get together on YouTube within the GWV's community, see how we're all doing as we remain in lockdown, we remain in the coronavirus crisis. So we'll be checking in via the live stream and the live chat in our live stream between 5 and 6 o'clock on the YouTube channel. So it's a busy day coming up, and of course it's going to be quite a long video, this summer update, so if you can't watch it all in one go, then don't worry, it will be kept at GWV.com indefinitely, and also on the YouTube channel as well. Of course, there'll be a written summary that goes with the video also, so you'll be able to have a read of that and watch the video on demand whenever you want. And I'll get that up, that written summary up sometime this evening. It'll probably be a little bit later, as we've got live stream to do first of all, but I will get that written summary up for you later on this evening. A big thank you to our good friend Richard Trott for supplying us with GWV's 2020 Summer Updates GIF, and special thank you to Terry Scully for this video as well. Terry has been really invaluable in pointing me in the direction of the solar minimum summers, so big thank you to Terry for Terry's input with this video. Thank you so much, Terry. I hope you're okay as well, my friend. Right, so as I say, I'm going to be talking about solar minimum summer. So the solar disk is very often spotless at the moment. This is from solarham.net, taken a couple of days ago. We'll be looking at this, of course, in GWV's Sunny Roundup. But this is solar disk taken a few days ago, and the solar disk was spotless then. And that's something that we're seeing a lot, of course, at the moment, spotlessness of the solar disk on our side of the disk and also on the other side of the disk as well, of course. And the reason of that is that we are around solar minimum. Now, we don't know whether we are at genuine true solar minimum right now, whether we're just before it or whether we're just after it. You never know until a little while after you've gone past solar minimum that you've actually reached it, if you see what I mean. And there'll be an announcement by NASA telling the world that we have entered the new solar cycle at some point, and they will pinpoint exactly which month was solar minimum. So we still have to look at summers that occurred before solar minimum and summers that occurred after solar minimum, and also 1 or 2 summers where solar minimum actually happens within within a summer month. So it's going to be quite a long video, got a lot to talk about. And the first batch of analogues we're going to look at are going to be summers that occur just before solar minimum. So this starts off with the summer of 1842. This summer was just before solar minimum, and excuse me, this is quite an anticyclonic summer, with above average heights sitting over and to the north of the country, below average heights away to the southwest. So this doesn't look like too bad a summer at all. You'd expect quite a lot of dry weather and warm weather with this one, bringing in a fair amount of easterly winds perhaps. So pretty dry and warm summer to start us off. Our next summer, just before solar minimum, is 1853. This one's much more unsettled. It has above average heights in the middle of the North Atlantic and away to the north as well, with below average heights over the country and to our east. A jet stream is pushed southwards, and so this is obviously it's a more unsettled summer with low pressure across much of North and West Europe, and it's also quite a coolish summer as well in 1853. Our next summer before solar minimum is 1866. This one also looks unsettled. It has northern blocking to the north of the country within the Arctic, and it has below average heights over and to the south of the country. We bring in the winds from an east to northeasterly direction with that one, so that's a cool and unsettled summer in 1866. 1878 is our next summer occurring just before solar minimum. This, of course, is just before the very severe winter of 1878-1879, which was a solar minimum winter. This one has northern blocking. It has high pressure within the northern latitudes, has low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. The jet stream is pushed southwards with this summer as well. So if it can go wrong, it does go wrong. Very unsettled summer. I think it's a reasonably warmish summer though, despite the unsettled nature of it. I think it is a reasonably warmish sort of summer, but it is a very, very unsettled summer. And one sort of unique thing about this summer is that we do tend to bring in the remains of hurricanes and tropical storms. Quite an active tropical storm season, I think, during 1878. Quite a few hurricanes and tropical storms, and a lot of those as areas of low pressure find their way into the UK. So although it's a very unsettled summer, it is also quite a warmish summer as well. The next summer occurring just before solar minimum doesn't get much better. This is 1889. This one also very unsettled with below average heights over the UK and much of Western Europe. Jet stream is pushed southwards as well. So that's another cool and unsettled summer occurring just before solar minimum. This one's better. This is 1901. This one with above average heights centred over and to the north and northeast of the country. Winds are sort of coming in from an easterly direction with this one. That's a drier and warmer summer in the summer of 1901. A nice summer showing up there. Back to business as usual, though, for our next summer occurring just before solar minimum. This one is 1912, one of the worst summers of the 20th century. I think it's the coldest and wettest August on record as well. If it can go wrong, it is going wrong. Jet streams pushed southwards, trough of low pressure from the Atlantic into the UK, blocking within the northern latitudes. It doesn't get much worse than that, and it is one of the worst summers on record, if not the worst, perhaps. Certainly the worst August on record, I think. 1922 is our next summer occurring just before solar minimum. This one with below average heights in from off the Atlantic. Jet stream is aligned northwest to southeast. That's a cool and unsettled summer in 1922. But a better one for 1933. So this is quite a hot summer, really. It has above average heights to our north and also to our west. Winds are coming in from the east. There's a lot of hot weather, and it's very dry summer too in the summer of 1933. That isn't too bad a summer at all. Quite a classic summer of the 1930s. There were several decent summers in the 1930s, actually. It's kind of a toned-down version of the 1990s in some ways. But I think 1933 is probably one of the better ones. 1943 next. This one is a more unsettled summer. Rather zonal, rather westerly, so it's just a very typical sort of rather unsettled British summer, really. Not overly dramatically unsettled, not overly wet, but it is generally a mixed summer in 1943. 1953 is a bit worse, actually. This one is very unsettled with, again, low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic, so that's a pretty grim summer, 1953. 1964 next, just before solar minimum. This one, again, with high pressure over and to the north of the, or low pressure, say, over and to the north of the country, high pressure out in the middle of the Atlantic. Jet stream is lined up a bit northwest-southeast. It looks like it'll be a very unsettled summer, but I don't think actually this summer was as bad as you might think, given the anomaly. I'm not sure, but I don't think it was quite as bad as you might have thought, given that anomaly. However, obviously it's not a particularly good summer. There were very few good summers in the 1960s from a warm, dry perspective. Most of them were bad. Some of them were absolutely dreadful. And 1964, I mean, it's not at the very worst end, I don't think, but it's not a good summer. By any means. 1975 is much better, though. So you see the way this is going. We have the trend, I think, with these summers before solar minimum is towards generally unsettled cool summers. But within that, several of them at spaced out intervals are actually pretty decent. So quite an interesting update, really. So this one, 1975, obviously this is one of the hot summers of the mid-1970s. There's two of them, 75, 76. This one is a dry and very warm summer. It starts cold with the snow at the beginning of June, but once that goes, it gets hotter and hotter. Has a very hot August in 1975. Also a very dry summer. As well. 1986, see, we go back to unsettled again. So this one is an unsettled summer with above average heights to the north and below average heights, low pressure, nearly more or less over top of the country. So that one again is unsettled and cool. It has a decent June. June 1986 is relatively dry, not particularly warm, but it is a relatively dry and fine month. And then things go badly downhill. It all falls apart. And there's a very cold and wet August in 1986. 1995, though, takes us back to the drier, warmer weather. This is a really good summer with above average heights centred very much over the top of the country. Winds are in from the east. This one occurring just before solar minimum. Is a hot summer, dry summer. It's actually drier than 1976, but isn't quite as hot as 1976. But nevertheless, this is a real classic summer from the 1990s with day after day of hot, dry and sunny weather. But then we go to 2008 and look what happens. We have an unsettled summer with above average heights again blocking within the northern latitudes and low pressure sitting over and just west of the country. Winds again are in from the west. So that one is a cool and wet summer in 2008. Is there a clear-cut trend here? I'm not sure. I would think the overall trend is probably towards more unsettled conditions, but with a very substantial number of dry and hot summers in there too. Let's see how it all comes together when we combine all Junes. This is all Junes combined for summers just before solar minimum. Actually, it's not too bad at all for June. Above average heights centred over Scandinavia and out to our west. Below average heights up to the northwest and down to the south. Winds will be coming in from the east. And so that's a relatively dry and relatively warmish sort of signal you would have thought for June. The low pressure to the south could be threatening some thundery rain or thunderstorms at times into the south, but overall not too bad at all. Also a little bit more mixed for July. This is all July's combined with below average heights again extending from northern Europe into the west of Europe. So that looks a little bit cooler, a little bit more unsettled as well in July. And then August shows a very dramatic deterioration with low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. So a front-loaded summer being suggested here with the summers before solar minimum. Driest and warmest weather is in the early part of the summer, and then it all falls apart as summer goes on. But again, bear in mind, there are a lot of exceptions to this. So we've got 1975 in the mix. That's a hot, dry August. We've got 1995 in the mix as well. That's another hot and dry August. So there are big exceptions to these all years combined charts. This is how all summers combined are looking, occurring just before solar minimum, and they tend to have high pressure to the north and low pressure over to the south. Obviously, we have a deteriorating pattern with these summers. They get worse as they go along. June isn't too bad. Things get worse through July, and then culminates on average, with most of them, in a very bad August. But again, bear in mind, there are several exceptions to that. And it looks like the overall package of analogues for summers before solar minimum favours unsettled weather. Yes, unsettled summers, particularly later on. But we do have a very, very substantial number more than you probably expect, actually, within a package of analogues with 1933, 1975, 1995, for example. A substantial number of summers that are drier and hotter as well. Right, I'm going to pause the video there, and when we come back, we'll look at the summers that occur just after solar minimum. So we're doing it all over again in a moment, but I'll pause the video there. You get yourself a cup of tea, and we'll see you back here in around 2 seconds' time. See you soon. Okay, we're back, and we're ready to resume the 6th Summer 2020 update. Hope you're enjoying it so far. Please give us a thumbs up on the video. Let us know that you are enjoying it by the thumbs up, and also in the comments as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel also. Right then, so in the first part of the video, we was discussing summers that occurred just before solar minimum. The trend with those looked to be overall unsettled, front-loaded with the driest, warmest weather early in June, and then deteriorating to culminating quite a cold, wet August signal, but with a very significant number of exceptions, like 1975, like 1995, which both had dry and hot August. We're going to go on now and have a look at summers that occurred just after solar minimum, because we don't yet know when solar minimum for solar cycle 24 is going to be. It's going to be very, very soon. It may already have happened. We may get an announcement from NASA at any time telling us that we are now into solar cycle 25. So the relevant summers at the moment are before and after, but this will be the last time. By the time we do, I would have thought by the time we do the winter updates, we may still have to do before and after for autumn, not sure, but I would have thought by the time we do the winter updates for 2021, we should, I would have thought, have had solar minimum confirmed by then, and then we would just look at the winters recurring just after solar minimum. Hopefully we won't have to do before and after during the summer updates. But for the moment, because we still don't know when or if solar cycle 25 has started, we have to look at both before and after solar minimum. So our next batch of analogues is going to be looking at summers occurring just after solar minimum. So here we go, and yes, we're going to begin with the summer of 1844. Look at this, unsettled summer, with below average heights sitting over the top of the country and above average heights within the northern latitudes. Jet stream is pushed southwards like that. That's an unsettled summer, cool and unsettled in 1844. Our next summer occurring just after solar minimum is 1854. This one, again, looks unsettled with high pressure to the north and low pressure to the south. Jet stream is coming in like that. It's another unsettled summer, 1854. 1867 is our next one. This one has above average heights up to the north, below average heights out to west and to south. Winds are coming in from the east. So that one looks drier with more of a Scandinavian high type signal. Next up is the summer of 1879. Of course, this is within a very, very cold year. The last time we had a centering temperature for a year was in 1879. Centering temperature at 7 degrees, under 8 degrees, was 1879. So this is part of a very, very cold year, abnormally cold year. It's an atrocious summer. It follows a severely cold winter. The whole of the year of 1879 was very, very cold, and you can see why it was such a dreadful summer in 1879. Next up, we have the summer of 1890. This one is again quite unsettled. Below average heights over and to the north of the country. Jet stream is on a northwest southeast alignment, a little bit like that. Next up, we've got the summer of 1902 coming out just after solar minimum. This one is unsettled. It looks like these are a more unsettled batch, I have to say. This one again, jet stream pushed southwards with areas of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. Quite an extensive northern blocking signal as well within the northern latitude. So that's not good. 1902 is a pretty bad summer. 1914 is quite an unsettled but also relatively warm summer. interesting, it does have blocking, but it's over towards Scandinavia, so we bring in a lot of warm easterlies and southeasters with this summer. It's quite a volatile summer. Just before World War One, it's breaking out warm and volatile with quite a lot of thunder. 1924 is one of the worst summers of the 20th century, with low pressure in off the Atlantic and part over top of the country. Jet stream is pushed southwards as well. That's a cold and wet summer in 1924. 1934 is better. This contains a hot July. It generally has a northern blocking signal, actually, with low pressure to our south, but we're bringing in the winds from the east. As I said in the first part of the video, there's a lot of really good summers in the 1930s, and yes, this is one of them. Not a bad summer at all in 1934. That's our first really decent summer, I think, so far. 1944 is again one of those sort of coolish, unsettled type summers. It's not a washout of a summer. We've had worse. It's not sort of a 1924 or a 1912. But it is pretty mixed. It's pretty unsettled and not a particularly exciting summer. And this is another very bad summer as well. This is 1954, occurring just after solar minimum. This is a cold and wet summer with, but you can see a reason why, a trough of low pressure part right over the top of the UK and Northern Europe as well. The jet stream is sent a long way southwards. So cold, wet summer in 1954. 1965 is one of the worst summers of the 1960s, and I said in the first half of the video, the 1960s are a very inauspicious decade for summers at the best of time. Most of them were pretty bad, but you know, most of them were ranging from bad to atrocious, and 1965 does hit the atrocious sort of end of the scale, unfortunately. So this is just a very, very dreadful summer indeed. If it can go wrong, it does go wrong. Jet stream shoved southwards, not all that much northern blocking, but it's a very bad summer, cold and wet in 1965. 1977 is our next summer, occurring just after solar minimum. So this one with below average heights to our south and above average heights away to the northwest. Winds are in from the east with that one. It's a more unsettled summer in 1977, unfortunately. It's mixed. And, you know, we had the two hot summers of 75 and 76. We don't get a third. So, any ideas that we get a third hot summer in 77, door was firmly closed on that, and overall it's quite a cool and unsettled summer. 1987 isn't a great deal better. So this one again occurring just after solar minimum. This one with a mid-Atlantic ridge going up towards Greenland, a trough of low pressure to our east. Winds are generally from a northerly direction through this summer. So it's quite a cool and quite an unsettled summer in 1977. Summer of 1996 is the next one, occurring just after solar minimum. This was not a bad summer. It's a little bit overshadowed, of course, as you would expect, by 1995, which is such a tremendously hot and dry summer and sticks in the memory. And, of course, 1997 has a very hot August. This one, sort of in between. There's a lot of dry and warm weather to enjoy in this summer. It's my kind of summer, really, this. It has regular heat wave, decent thunderstorms, but also protracted periods of cooler and more unsettled conditions, so everybody can cool off, have a bit of a breather before the next hot spell gets going. Any hot spell is not sustained more than a few days. I mean, it breaks down into thunderstorms, and that's my kind of summer. I have very fond memories of the summer of 1996, when, of course, football was coming home. Or maybe not, as it actually turned out. And then, lastly, for a summer occurring just after solar minimum, we've got 2009. This one with below average heights, low pressure in the Atlantic. Winds are in from the southwest. So there's a very poor July in the summer of 2009. That's pretty grim. On either side of it, it's not too bad. I mean, it's not great, but June and August 2009 are okay-ish. They have some drier and warmer inches. This, of course, the famous barbecue summer of the UK Met, when they promised us a barbecue summer, and what we actually ended up with was a very grim July, and June and August not too bad. We've had worse. Putting all of that together, this is how all Junes combined are looking during summers that occur just after solar minimum. Much more unsettled signal for June. Look at that. We had a far more anticyclonic signal for June in the summers that were occurring just before solar minimum, but the summers occurring just after solar minimum, it looks pretty grim for June. A cool and unsettled month is definitely favoured there. Gets worse into July. Look at that. Below average heights again, covering much of northern Europe, including the UK. There is northern blocking involved in that as well. So that's a cold and wet signal for July. Does August get any better? No, not really. All August combined also looking very, very unsettled. Look at that. Low pressure in off the Atlantic with the jet stream blocking. Blocking is up to the north. With those all August combined. Those look like atrocious summers. And unlike in the first package of analogues, where there were a very substantial minority of summers that were really good, like 1975, like 1995. These don't have that sort of minority of good summers. These are just generally most of them anyway, or nearly all of them, very, very poor. And then finally, all summers combined occurring just after solar minimum looks like that. Very, very unsettled signal. Doesn't get much worse than that, the summer really. Low pressure dominates and brings a cold and wet looking pattern for those summers occurring just after solar minimum. So you want a decent summer, you're probably going to be hoping that we are just before solar minimum still, that we haven't yet reached or gone past solar minimum. Now, the last thing I can show you, there's one last thing I can show you for this, and that is going to be summers where solar minimum actually occurs during a summer month. So when we go from one solar cycle to another in the summer itself. There's not many of those that do that, interestingly. So that would imply that the odds favour either that we have already passed solar minimum, we're going to get an announcement from NASA soon that we're into solar cycle 25, or alternatively that we haven't yet reached it and it'll happen perhaps later on in the year. But the final batch of analogues is looking at summers where solar minimum occurs during a summer month. One of those summers is 1843. The first of them is 1843. This will be blocking up to the north and below average heights to our south and southeast. Winds are in from the northeast. So the summer of 1843 is unsettled and quite cool. The next summer where solar minimum occurs during a summer month is 1913. This one, below average heights over much of Eastern Europe. Above average heights are out, let's change the colour, above average heights are out to our west and northwest. That's a relatively quietish sort of summer, and a little bit nondescript. There's not a huge amount going on in that summer of 1913. The next summer is 1923. This one isn't too bad at all. It has the above average heights to our west-southwest. Below average heights are up to the north. That's not a bad summer at all in 1923. Quite a good summer. And then look at that. Look what has turned up. It's the daddy of hot summers, 1976. It's the first time we've seen it. The first time that we've seen it through this year of summer updates, but there it is. We've got the daddy of hot summers, and that was at the last time, actually, that solar minimum occurred during a summer month itself. Can you believe it? The last time it happened was during the daddy of hot summers, and you can see why it is the daddy of hot summers, because it has that huge area of high pressure over the top of the country. We bring in those hot easterly winds, all of the low pressure is kept away from us out in the Atlantic over the eastern side of Europe. Looks like it would have been a very grim summer in Greece and Turkey, for example, but we're under that block. And yes, it's a very, very hot summer and also exceptionally dry summer as well, culminating the great drought of the middle of the 1970s. And there it is, the daddy has turned up for the first time in this season of summer 2020 updates. So putting those years together, there's only 4 of them as well, and obviously it's going to be quite heavily skewed by 1976 being in the mix. But putting all of those together, with the caveat there's only 4 of them, and the last one was 1976, we see that all Junes combined, much more anticyclonic, above average height, centred very close to the country, a dry and warm month favoured in June. All Julys combined look like that. Again, this is going to be very heavily skewed by 76 being in there, but all Julys combined tend to have high pressure very close to the country. Low pressure tends to be pushed away to the south. So again, it's a strong anticyclonic signal, a dry and potentially hot month favoured for July. All August combined, again, because we've got 76 and there's only 4 summers doing this. All August combined favours high pressure again over the country, bringing the winds from a hot easterly direction. And finally, all summers combined, where the solar minimum is occurring during a summer month, looks like that, and it is a strongly anticyclonic signal with high pressure set over the top of the country, favouring a dry and hot summer, where solar minimum occurs during a summer month. But again, do bear in mind that's a bit of a shocker at the end. Turned everything on its head in a way that we don't often see when we do these summer updates. But certainly those final charts really flipped everything around, I think. But again, please do bear in mind that there's only 4 examples where solar minimum has occurred during a summer itself. Most of the time they occur either before or after a summer. I'm not sure why the reason for that should be, but there we go, that's what the data shows. So it is mixed, yes. Definitely there's summers where we have solar minimum during the summer itself, favouring hotter, dry weather. There's only 4 examples, and one of those is 76. Summers that are occurring, where solar minimum is occurring before the summer, they are overall favoured to be unsettled, but there are a very significant number of hot summers, interestingly, within those. And then the summers that are occurring after solar minimum, they are by far the clearest cut worst summers, favouring colder, wetter conditions just after solar minimum. It's quite interesting, that, because we also know that winters just after solar minimum are favoured to be quite a lot colder. So there's some connection there, I'm not sure, but definitely we saw the evidence that the worst batch of the 3 batches of analogues were the summers after solar minimum. So there we go, it's all food for thought, and this will form part of the summer forecast as well. This is one of those big updates that we do. Of course, we do weekly updates all the time, but the biggest updates are always like solar activity, ENSO, QBO. Those are the really big updates. And then the monthly data that we look at, CT, rainfall, yes, we look at those, but we don't weight them quite as highly, actually, within the overall forecast. It's always the big drivers like solar activity, like the QBO, you know, the big drivers of weather like ENSO, but we weight the strongest when we do our forecast, given a little bit of inside information there, actually. Perhaps I've said too much. But there we go. So that's it anyway for the 6th summer 2020 update. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on the video and let us know in the comments what you thought, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you would like to do that. We are also taking on channel memberships. So if you'd like to become a Gaz Service YouTube channel member, then click the join button and just see all of the information about how to become a channel member for Gaz Service YouTube channel. We'll be back later on with GWV Sunny Roundup. Then we'll have the ECWF Metro France and DWD Long Range Update. And then we've got a live stream coming up on the channel between 5 and 6 o'clock. We're going to get together and see how we're all doing during lockdown. This video will be placed on the Summer 2020 Updates and Forecast page, and will be a written summary that goes with it as well. I'll get one up for you this evening. Getting on for 35 minutes, been a longer one this one, but had a lot of data to go through at nearly 35 minutes. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.